Omkaram bindu sanyatam nityam dayanti yogina kamadam moksharam shaila. Omkaraya namo namaha. Shanti, shanti, shanti.
Om Shanti. Peace. So, welcome. Today, I'm joined by Prajapati Swaine, and a little bit of background on Prajapati. He has been a yoga teacher and practitioner of integral yoga since 1995. He's a devotee of Sri Swami Satchidananda Maharaj. And he also has a master's degree in psychology and a doctorate in counseling. So I like that you put there a little bit about your personality to kind of separate that world. And Prajapati and I have been participating in a spiritual gathering, kind of like a sharing circle on Saturday mornings. I've been joining for the past 3 years, Prajapati for much longer. I don't know how many years has it been going on now? Maybe
it's about 13 or 14.
13 or 14 years. Yeah. So we always get together with that kind of group and have some fun sharings. And yeah, anyone is free to join us for those. We've kind of moved onto Zoom now during this time. Normally we get together in person, which is obviously preferred, and drink some morning beverages and have some snacks and have fun. But Prajapati, why do you enjoy kind of making time for that each week?
I find it to be an opportunity to explore for myself and the other people in the group just how we're doing on our yoga path, on our inquiry into who we are and what we're doing in this world, and what it all means, and what we can do to improve our life experience, however it shows up, so that we can be joyful and be generous. I would say I feel like I attain that every time, every Saturday over 13 years. It's a lot.
So you mentioned improving life experience. Has that always been something that you were interested in? Like, how can things improve? How can I grow? How can I see more?
Yeah, I would say that if I look back in time, I could see that started when I was probably in elementary school, actually. And that's been my interest for all these years, many years. As a psychologist, that became my career. And I would say it's my general orientation to be joyful and to spread joy, both.
I find it interesting that, it seems almost unusual that it's rare for people to really want to explore truth and to go deep, right? Like I'm really happy to have found a community where it's common, where people really want to explore and grow. But I remember always kind of feeling like an outsider for much of my life. If I brought up, deeper questions, it seemed like it was common to kind of want to push that away and exist more on a surface level, and not really kind of explore. But now I try to like open up and genuinely ask, is there something to that? You know, I've always like assumed like, okay, I like to go deep. I want to, ask more philosophical questions or whatever you want to call it. But is there something to kind of existing more on a surface level and just maybe ignoring being a seeker?
I would suppose that for most people, as you start out in life, that you're engaged in the social and the physical world primarily. And then as you mature, I guess maybe this is what maturity is, you begin to see that there's more to life than just pleasure or being social, being liked, and participating in whatever it is, sports or whatever it is, as a young person. And then as you maybe, again, I'd say mature, but as you perhaps go to college or you're in your maybe 20s, then it begins to occur to you that maybe there's something else going on. There can be other possibilities. True, I think for some people, their religious preparations in their family can begin to open up some of those ideas. I think that's probably my case also. But I think it's developed.
But I guess my question for you, how has it helped you to kind of probe deeper truths in life and ask, who am I? What is going on here? How does that help you?
Oh, how is it? Well, I think that at some point you realize that life is what you make it. And then behind that, maybe we're creating our own problems and our own grief. When that begins to occur to your sense of who you are, then I think things open up for you, and you begin to find some means for encouraging that experience of a more, I guess it's more altruistic, I think, actually, if you had to put a word onto it. The altruism begins to occur to you that, the people around you are more enlivened in your experience, and that begins to become a reward in itself. So instead of just rewarding yourself all the time, you begin to think of, how can I make somebody else feel better? And I suppose that happens a lot in your first, deep relationships, wherever that is, either in your family or when you people that you meet.
And that becomes even a different kind of reward, or maybe more of a reward.
Yeah, it does. It becomes a deeper reward. It's more lasting, I think, than if you just go out and get yourself something, whatever it is, ice cream or something like that. You feel good for a little while, but it's only a few moments. But when you're sharing ice cream with somebody else, there's a different and a magnified joy in that. I think that's an important thing to experience, and I think we all have that opportunity to experience that at some time.
Isn't it interesting that nature is set up that way? Like that's a part of the game where it encourages service to others, doing good for others. Yeah,
I'd say that there's something about the human experience being that we're I was talking with my wife about this before, that as mammals, we're brought up into a social environment. So this would be true of all the mammalian on Earth. We're brought up into a family, and we're brought up to experience and see how we relate to each other. And you observe your siblings relating with your parents and so forth. That, I think, begins that orientation, that possibility for extending your concern beyond your own mind and body. So I think that's there. It's inherent for all of us. At some point, maybe, then you might want to extend that and look deeper into that and just see, what is the basis of joy anyway? That's a good question.
What is it? The basis of joy.
I never thought you'd ask. I think that, you can have momentary happiness, but I think joy is something deeper than that, and it's more basic and more the nature of our self, as Swami Satchidananda would tell us, that our own true nature, the basis is joy, is happiness, and so we kind of come back to that rather than have a view to the exterior for finding joy. You look for your deeper experience of that. And then so as yoga, well, I would just go right into yoga from there, but go ahead, we can come back.
An initial question for me is, how do we even move from that inherent joy to begin with? When that is our true nature, that is joy, what is the process moving away from that? How does that happen?
My understanding is that we lose that around school age, or a little bit before that, perhaps. We begin to be indoctrinated by our culture and the language that is embedded in the culture. And that includes all kinds of assumptions and beliefs and attitudes that don't necessarily correspond to the here and now. They're references to the past, actually, I'd say. And with language, you'd go all the way back to the beginnings of language. It's passed on from generation to generation, all the way back 100,000 years or whatever. And those experiences include a lot of things that are no longer present, for one thing. That's one reason why we're nowadays very attracted to trying to experience life in the here and now. It's more rich. The here and now, the experience of what's going on right now is more rich than our memories. So I think we find that out. We learn that, and we find that out.
And are we holding on to memories, elements of the past, and also considering the future, both because we're afraid, like because of fear? And does it take like a letting go of fear and really not being afraid in order to simply be here now?
I think that's very true. I think fear is probably the basis for a lot of the certainly the problems that we experience. I think come from a fear. That fear is deep in the mind, let's say, of people. And again, I think that goes back, 100,000 years or way back in time anyway. So we start off with a fear that, we're going to die, and that expands to all the other kinds of fears about things. Fear of loss, basically, I would say. And it's a big burden. It's a big burden. And consequently, as we practice yoga, that's one of the things that one of the directions, let's say, that we would move on a path is away from fear and towards love. Love being accepting, love being embracing what is, and fear being denying on some level what's happening, wanting it to be different than the way it is now, which I think is the characteristic of the mind, actually. Wanting things to be different than the way they are.
Is there like a healthy element to like goal setting and shifting your life in a more positive way that has a different flavor than just wanting things to be different? So is it possible for me to accept fully how things are now and to feel comfortable with how things are now, while still at the same time maybe doing a little bit of planning or making some decisions that could bring even more contentment?
So that's a very good question, and one that would concern everybody that has tried to make their way in the context of our culture, or any culture. When you're in a culture and part of a culture, you're accepting the ideals of the culture, and you're trying to, accomplish goals that would configure with the values of the culture. And I think that all of us would have that experience, maybe as the prime experience. For mystics and for yogis, I think that at some point we put that aside, not to be done away with, not that at all. I would not suggest that, but to change the importance, let's say, of actualizing or accomplishing our goals is not the prime value in life. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's like you do have both. You do have goals, but at some point you let the goals become less eminent, less preeminent.
Seems to me maybe the difference is, feeling that I need to escape from my current situation and therefore run towards something else or build something else, or I feel comfortable where I'm at and it might be fun to build something or work on a project.
I don't know. Are you saying that you find that you feel completion, let's say, in accomplishing your goals? I think as we age, you're still maybe haven't reached the age. That's a joke, kind of a joke, actually. Uh,
I think what I mean is I guess I would say like having goals or projects in a way can be seen as a fun way to experience the present, right? Like thinking of Swami Satchidananda, right? Like he built Yogaville, right? He clearly had a vision of something that was going to happen in the future, and he spent so much time building that vision, right? While at the same time, I wouldn't say that he was at all, not content or being present, right?
I would say with Swami Satchidananda is that he enjoyed what he was doing, but he often told us that he could walk away from all of this, that this was not his, I don't know if he used the word purpose, but not his, not who he was, maybe something like that. But he could leave it. He could leave it all. And I think that's actually key. I think that when I say that, have a different perspective, that's what I'm thinking actually. He enjoyed it. He did what he did, and he did it. He obviously did it very well. But he didn't think that that was who he was. He never made the mistake of thinking that's who he was. He didn't think that he was the big guru and we were the devotees sitting around. He said it could have been the other way around. He didn't even know why it was that way. And I don't think he thought it was in his heart particularly different, whether we were sitting on the stage or you were sitting down in the audience. And I think that to me is the distinction that I would make.
Yeah, I think it's key, and it makes me think of like social action, or causes towards justice, right? And often I think maybe even like the attitude towards being spiritual or meditating or anything like that is, oh, if you do that, you're not going to do anything with you're not going to accomplish anything, and there's work that needs to be done, and therefore like get at it. Like there's problems in the world, solve them, right? And yeah, I'm very interested in this topic because I don't know, from my experience, like when I go deep, like if I feel that there's a problem in the world that I need to solve, right? And I'm holding on to the outcome of my ability to make a change, that just like it feels unhappy to me. And it feels like I'm setting myself up for some kind of failure, like even if I accomplish one task, then what after that? Then I need to pick another one to do. It's like, I think what you said, like totally invested in whether or not I could do it, right? And that Swami Satchidananda wasn't invested in that kind of a way. So that's my inquiry a little bit, is that, what happens when we take actions, but we're not like clinging to the outcomes in the same kind of way. And also the investigation of, if I find peace, right? And, I meditate, I find stillness, maybe I kind of lose my personality a little bit. Does that mean that I'm not going to take action for good? From my experience, it's actually the opposite, and that more good will be accomplished from kind of that more peaceful state than one of looking at it like there's a problem that needs solving now.
I think that's a a nugget of what needs to be experienced and maybe solved in some kind of way. Solve that. But I think, yeah, both things are going on. Both things are going on. And I think the question is, how much of our self is committed to get the benefit for ourselves. If you're trying to get the benefit for yourself, it would be said that that's an ego exercise then, and what the only thing that'll come out of that will be something for the ego. But if you have a more open and a more inclusive objective, you're doing things for the benefit of everyone, then the benefits are greater. They include everyone. So the benefit is large. I think that is something that we can discover, and is a very important thing to discover. Actually, maybe one of the most important things to discover is how to do both of those things. How to be open, to be called forward to do something, and make life better for everyone, or whether it's a greedy thing to try to get more for yourself. That's, I think.
And the greedy thing can be subtle too. Like, is there greed in like wanting to prove that I'm a good person? Right? It's like I'm doing this, I'm helping these other people so that I can put myself in the category of good person. I don't know if that's getting it either.
That's it. I think that's totally right. That's it. And it's a very fine line. It's a very fine line. And that's a good opportunity for developing your self-awareness. I mean, I think when we talk about self-awareness, that's what we're talking about, actually. To really look at our motives and to really look at, what's the purpose of what we're doing. So that's an opportunity.
Yeah, I feel like it reminds me of what we were saying earlier in terms of the child, and how that joy, that peaceful state that is kind of just natural and is our birthright, it gets taken away. Does it get taken away because we're told by other people that we have something to prove, and then we spend all this time trying to prove our own worth, when kind of the idea is that there's nothing to prove? We just are this joy and this peace, and I don't need to prove my individuality, or that whole notion is kind of preposterous to begin with.
I think that, I don't even blame it on our parents, because they also are configured by culture. That's why I think it goes all the way. It's just what we come into as human beings. We're coming into this. It's already a setup and everything, and we can just go along with that conditioning, or we can, with the intention, develop a more and more awareness of what is the real, and then what is not so real. And as the Buddhists have laid it out very clearly, is that the things that come go, and that's just the nature. What arises dissolves again. And so you begin to look around and you see that's the case, actually. There's nothing that really stays. It's all moving, it's all going. But then they invite, the Buddhists and yogis also, invite ourselves to see what is not disappearing. And then you begin to look into that. And I think then comes a richness that is attuned to the world too. It's not leaving you don't leave the world behind, in my opinion. I mean, some people do that in order to try to reach this, but I don't think that's necessary, and it may not even be that effective to do that. I think the intention to really see what's the nature of life and what's the nature of the world, and then to apply that in a way that's effective for yourself and everyone. And I think it's clear, the yogis, I think, have demonstrated it very clearly that it's a process of letting go of things, that makes you light. That's why we call it enlightenment. I think that's a great discovery in our human language. It's an important discovery in language, that light, being light, is letting go of things, is taking things off your back and opening up. So if there is such a thing as a goal, which I don't think the masters would say that there's really not a goal. There's just being who you are. Very simple.
Describing the coming and the going, right? And think of, the compliments and the criticisms, right? And I see them rise and then I see them fall. And so really what I hear there is coming to terms with peace, right? Or connecting with our peace, that kind of that middle state, that observer, that is watching these things happen. And it makes me think of this part in myself that feels that that's not good enough, right? It's kind of maybe like this old childlike part, or I don't know exactly what it is. It's like the peace isn't good enough, right? It's like that part of me, it wants it wants the feast, it wants the party, it wants, all that more flashy, showy stuff. So is this process, in a way, I could say for myself, it's like I've noticed that for a time now, and it's almost like I have this relationship with peace, right? So at first it was like, oh, whatever, like peace, kind of bland type of thing. And then now, from experiencing enough, that's it, for me to be at peace, and it is enough. Like, I don't need anything more than that, than being in a peaceful state. Any reflections on that, or sharings from your own experience in terms of your relationship with peace?
I think I certainly, as a young person, I wouldn't have anything to do with peace, actually. I wouldn't. I'd say peace is for, it's just not, it's not exciting.
Yeah.
And it's not really, as a younger person, I would say, I thought this. I thought that peace was just, beside the point. But as I matured, again, I like the word mature in a way that, I've experienced the opposite of peace. And I've seen how that works and doesn't work. And I think that the peace that I see now and that I know now includes energy. I wouldn't say excitement exactly, but it includes energy. So there's an energy in the peace. And I have heard people in various groups say that they felt that the peace was, like nothing. But my experience now is that the peace actually is everything, and it embeds and embodies energy. So the energy then moves more freely and more, I'd say, more effectively also. Peace, I think, you need to really look at these words, I think, is an important thing. As a young person, peace to me meant like laying down on in bed or something, maybe. That was peace. But as you look into the depth of peace, you see something different. You see something different. You see something where you're not entangled. You're not possessed and enslaved, actually, by desires and by things that you don't have in your hands. So I think as a I'd like to say younger person, but as a person that's involved and committed to action, if that's the goal, action towards goals, if that's your whole life, that has diminishing returns. And as you go through year after year after year, the returns don't seem to be that valuable. So then you have that to compare with the peace. So it gives you a different understanding of what the peace could be.
Yeah, I like that you've been using the word mature. That word keeps coming up for me too, because I do feel like that is the process, the maturation process. And the other word connected to peace for me is acceptance, like total acceptance. And, I need to even ask myself, like, who am I not to accept, how things are? And I mean, that's another level. I think that the ego blows itself out of proportion. Oh, it's playing God, saying that, oh, things aren't right and they need to be this way instead of that. And they need, I'm in charge of dictating what the unfoldment of our species and the planet is. That's for me, part of this yogic path is realizing what is beyond me and really having humility. And when I do that, then I can accept, because again, who am I to question how things are happening?
I think questioning is good. If I had to say good and bad, to me, the questioning, but where's the questioning going? I guess is where are you going with the question?
Well, let me clarify a little bit, because it's not to say that, like, okay, I don't see something that could be realigned or put on a different path, right? Or that I couldn't take action. But instead of like being absolutely sure that I'm right, if it has this flavor of kind of humility to it, that changes it a little bit. Like, right. So I think there's nothing wrong at all. It's a wonderful thing to try to make the world more just if you can, but without thinking that I know for sure. It's like, I think that this is a good thing, but in the end, I'm limited by my human capacity for understanding.
I think that I would certainly agree with that, and I think that that's an understanding that there are greater powers in the universe. Call it whatever you wish, what those powers are, but there are greater powers, and that if we can be open to the greater powers, and if we willingly accept the greater powers and accept what is, basically accepting what is and accepting the greater powers, I think they correspond anyway. Those two things come together. So when you accept what is, in a way you're accepting God, if you want to put a name on it or whatever, or the greater powers, you're accepting the greater powers. Then I think you can channel, or not even when I say you can channel, that's not saying it correctly, actually.
It channels you.
Flow through you. It can flow through you. So grace, I think, is a way that a word that we use, I think, is an effective word. Miracles happen. Miracles are going on all the time. Miracles are actually we are in and are the miracle already, which is the strange thing. Actually, we're in the miracle, and it's it's our mind, our personality, and our conditioning that thinks we have to have it different than the way it is, which is certainly it's very arrogant, and it doesn't work out very well. You just look around and see where people are caught in that, and it generally leads to tremendous disappointment when the universe grinds you back down to dust, which you will be, personality, person, body, mind will be ground down into dust again. That's for sure. And so if you think that's who you are, and if you have those coins, if you're saving those coins of body, mind as your value and everything that you've accumulated, you're going to find out for sure that it's going to turn to dust. And it may be 10 years, 100 years, 1,000 years, whatever the number of years, if you wanted to look at it in terms of years, but it disappears. So why bother with it? Why bother with that at all? Yeah.
I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which is blame, right? Not blaming our parents, right? For as an example, or really not blaming anyone, right? Like that also seems maybe like a hard thing to let go of, that there is no one to blame, right? Yeah, or even it makes me think of kind of like evil forces, right? That's common to think that there's an evil that needs to be defeated. On your path, have you come to a place where like there is no evil and there is no one to blame? And what has that shift done for you, if there has been a shift of sorts there?
I mean, I can say that deep down, I know. And then I have this mind that's working. And the mind is working on the basis of good and evil. It works on the basis of opposites. That's how the mind is configured. So when my awareness is confined to the mind, then it's operating on that level. It's operating on those things, and there is blame. And I can look at things in our current government. Is a good place to look always as a government. But I can also know at the same time that that's superficial. It's kind of a conditioned response to somebody meeting my own beliefs and my own expectations, and probably limited understanding about what's actually going on. So I look at the government and I say, this is so impossible. This is my rational mind. I say, this is so impossible. How could this possibly occur? And I can't figure out how it could have occurred. So then I can say, well, then this is the divine play, or the divine configuration, the plan, or whatever, and it'll play out in a way and at a time that's not mine in this system of thinking to reach and to understand, so that I can let it go. And I think that's an achievement that has come with maturity. And practice of yoga. I really don't minimize, in my experience of practice, such as yoga practice, to help to dissolve some of my beliefs and expectations about how things are, including that something is good, completely good, or bad, completely bad. So I would say that now I have educated my mind. My mind has been educated to that understanding that there's a greater plan, and there's a greater force and a greater opportunity even So the opportunity and the possibilities in life open up a lot, actually.
I love what you just said about educating your mind. To educate our minds, like, whoa, like, what does that mean? Right? To do that makes me think of like who's captaining the ship, right? Who's running things inside here? Yeah, how can we educate the mind? And you mentioned your yoga practices. I know that you mean that as more than just physical hatha yoga. Can you explain more what yoga practices mean to you when you say that?
Yeah. Well, yoga, I would, if I had to say that I was something, I would guess I would say that I'm a yogi, and that I've accepted that the path of yoga and the teachings, which are incredibly deep and incredibly wide and very pervasive. Tremendous opportunity that we have as human beings now that these teachings are so available. And they're so deep. I think that the focus for me in yoga has always been, and I was a hatha teacher for 20 years. So I know the benefits of the hatha practice. But I think that sometimes in current society, hatha practice is seen as some kind of like a health club kind of an opportunity, which it certainly hatha practice does have that aspect, which it is very beneficial to your body, and it's beneficial to your minds too. And certainly in the practice of yoga nidra and the freeing of awareness from the body, that practice is extremely useful to have that. And I think we in modern world are benefiting from that. Even when we think that's what we're going for, we think we're going for physical health and well-being and beauty even. Actually, what's happening is we are learning to focus our awareness on the subtle sensations that are generally not attended to. And that practice of focusing awareness is one of the principal steps or limbs, let's say, of yoga, the concentration. And we're kind of eased into the concentration, which I think is the best way to do it. The best way is to be eased into it and to find out that you're not your thoughts. And when you find out that you are not your thoughts, that you are the one who's watching your thoughts, who's witnessing your thoughts, and that you can not be carried away by your thoughts. That's a very important step. So, yoga. We have in the integral yoga, we have 6 yogas, and I would say that I have the acceptance of that methodology, and I do practice all 6 of the limbs, including the mantra. Mantra is very important, I think, for me to center myself sometimes. I mean, always, actually, not just sometimes. Mantra is an opening, a gateway. And then, the jnana, the self-inquiry, and the service, karma yoga. Each of these ingredients of the all the yogis come together to fortify. That's not the right word. To realize. I mean, we've been using that word in yoga for a long time. To realize, for the real to rise. I don't know if I have anything
Yeah,
more.
no, that's great. You're talking about awareness and concentration too.
Yeah.
Is it important to kind of be kind to ourselves too when we catch the mind not being aware, not concentrating, like, oh, I was supposed to be listening to something and then I wasn't, right? Like that moment there when I realized that I wasn't focused, right? What is my relationship with myself at that moment? For myself, I could say like that's been an evolving thing where I noticed that my tendency, in the past is kind of to feel bad about myself for not focusing, not being aware, right? And then now this the re-education of my mind is that that's totally okay, right? And it's just like, let's just jump right back in to the awareness and the focusing. I don't even need to skip a beat. I don't need to analyze myself or assess myself for being good or bad, not focusing. So yeah, is that an important step in this process of being aware?
I think definitely for we're again, I'll come back to our orientation as human beings. We start off life as very, very weak babies. We're totally dependent on our parents and those around us for survival. And so we're open to receive some indoctrination, which may not be entirely useful or entirely fair or true. Either parents or anybody that's around us. And when we go to school, it's the same. We're taking things in, and building up a personality, and not consciously. It's just it's automatic. It's what is the just the way it is for coming into the world as human beings. So we take on a lot of stuff that's it's not useful, and it's not even accurate. And we have these, ideas about ourself. Again, we're talking now about personality. So that personality, which is our fulcrum in the world, dealing in the world, is colored by these beliefs. Even their beliefs. I believe that I'm whatever it is, and so when you're watching yourself and your intention is to be aware, and then there's times when you're not aware. That is, again, it's your mind that's not aware. But when your mind becomes aware that it's not aware, then the awareness is there for that moment or whatever. And when the awareness is there for that moment, stay with the awareness, and the awareness will let everything flow, basically. Because that's what the awareness lets it be, lets things be, lets you be. So being really is coming from that. So when what you might think of as a negative occurs, it's a positive because it opens up the awareness. So a great teacher has shown that to me to be true, that every time something is bad, who is knowing that that's bad, and then just be in that knowing. And when you're in that knowing, then you're back in reality again. It's a interesting phenomenon. It's really,
Isn't it?
I
It's
got to
like
tell you
this
something.
flow.
This
Yeah.
occurs to me. Now, this is something that I don't share very much, but I will share this because I think it fits in here. When Gurudev passed away, when my teacher passed away, there was a great loss, a tremendous loss, and I can remember very vividly when we're gathered up there. I guess Chidambaram. We were gathered outside of Chidambaram, and they were going to put him in his sepulcher. And there were lots of us around, 1,000 or 500 or some gigantic number. And we were all mourning, and we're very moved. I mean, a lot of people were very sad. Most people were experiencing the great loss. And soon after that, maybe the same day when I was walking away or something, I felt so close to him. I felt so close. And it occurred to me that when you experience and you really get the loss, then the presence is there at the same time. It's like the loss and the presence are both there at the same time. It's like, what? How could that be? And then I really got how Swami Satchidananda was always telling us that he was going to be more present when he left the body. And it's strange that I find, and many people have noticed this. I'm not the only one who's noticed this. But you can just have the thought, and the thought itself opens up the presence. Now maybe it's a deeper kind of thought, perhaps, or something. But maybe these deeper thoughts actually can be revealed out of sadness and out of loss, more so even than when that person, if it's a person, is there with you. It's a very strange phenomenon. The person is more with you when they're gone. And I've noticed that other times as well with other people. It's that and my conclusion, if my mind has a conclusion about this, which my mind has plenty of conclusions, is that this reality is not the way we see it at all, actually. And that whatever life is, it's not bound up in skin and bones. This life is an energy, whatever that is, and it's floating around all the time, and it's really everywhere. This is a new idea for my mind that I find very engaging, very engaging. It's part of joy, I think. Actually, this is a part of what joy is. Realizing that it's not, things don't just like end and go away.
So would you say it's even moving from maybe like a questioning of the potential ending of death to more of a certainty that, like, I'm certain that this is not ending, and that maybe I don't have anything to be afraid of, and that knowing then is connected to a certain joy that's liberating?
there's awareness there that's in joy. Joy and awareness. Maybe joy and awareness actually are just two different words for the same thing. Awareness being something different than thinking. When I talk about awareness, I'm not talking about, thinking. Actually, it's not thinking. Thinking can benefit from awareness. That's why I say, educating the mind, I think is what that is actually. The awareness is modifying the mind, modifying the conditioning that we started off with, and that's kind of underlying as human beings in our human nature.
Yeah, that might be a good place for us to wrap things up today.
Okay.
Prajapati, are there any other kind of just final thoughts or words that you'd like to share?
We like to say peace and joy, love and light. I convey and hope that we may deeply know that peace and that joy and that love and that light. And don't stop at the words. Don't stop at the words. You talk about meditation, and I think too often we're captured by some idea about what meditation is and what realization is, and we stop with the words. And I think meditation is the opportunity to go beyond the words, to experience and know what is love. That would be enough. Okay.
Yeah. Kind of basking in that right now.
Good.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you spending this time with me.
My pleasure.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this content and think others might as well, please feel free to share and subscribe.